Our next guest on the Any Given Monday podcast is a coach, runner, and an actor who has worked in the fitness industry across Scotland, Australia, Canada, and now F45 in Ireland. She is a member of the 100 Mile Club, coming second in the Belfast 24 Ultra, with a third place finish in the Longford Ultra Marathon and winning the 120k Belfast to Derry Ultra. Colleen, Keogh, welcome to this week's episode of the Any Given Monday podcast. How are you getting on?
Hey guys, what an intro. Thank you there.
It's some intro. It kind of like, and in fairness, Sean didn't mess it up as well. It's probably the first one he did. He's been practicing all day.
So proud.
As it said actress, Sean has been doing lines for the week. That's it. He's been practicing since the honeymoon. Colleen, you are very welcome to the podcast. Not only is your, I suppose, CV quite big, but it's very global. You've traveled everywhere. So, where did sport start for you? Where in the world did sport start for you?
It did start back home in Scotland. So I'm from a small town. There wasn't a lot of opportunities I felt to progress within the fitness industry. So then I moved over to Australia, lived there for 4 years, did personal training there. And I suppose same thing, kind of felt there's more to do. Now there's going to be little side stories off with all of that as well. Then after a car accident, moved to Canada, started getting into gym management there, and then moved to Ireland. And then yeah, started working for F45 and getting into running and everything.
The rest is history, and that's the end of this week's episode of the end. So, when sport obviously has been part of your foundation in life from a young age. Was it as big? Because I know in Ireland we have, and you've known from being here, like GAA is important, athletics is important. We try everything. We are kids who probably in our generation we played six sports until we were about 15, and then you realize you can't really do it. Back home in Scotland, how was it in terms of that, particularly coming from small town?
Uh, I certainly felt I didn't get involved in team sports, not because it wasn't available to me. I was pushed down the kind of, I say pushed down, so my mum and dad will listen to this and being like, you said push down, but I was
Don't
encouraged.
worry, we'll highlight that and send
I
it to
know.
them.
I went down the ballet route. That was my kind of sport as a teenager. So everything was quite individual for me. And then my mum would send me to like athletic camps over the summer because with ballet you naturally become quite a good jumper. My PE teacher would have noticed that. So that was a little avenue that I'm saying I wasn't really interested in. It just so happened I was good at it. So it was like, yeah, Easter, summer, camp. But in terms of team sport, I've noticed it's huge over here, but I feel like even amongst my group of friends back home, it wasn't something that we really did. It was like the gym and dancing. But then maybe it's my age as well. I feel like female sports wasn't like a big thing, as a teenager.
It's definitely something that's changing now, and we're quite lucky in Ireland that I suppose we have camogie, we have football, and we have a few other things that encourages young ladies to get involved in sport. When we look at, I suppose, that transition from you as a teenager to an adult, and obviously you decided, right, I need to broaden my horizons, and you go to a country like Australia, which is huge on sport. What was that change like for you in terms of taking what you know from your foundations of ballet? Dancing it's a fitness sport. Let's be honest. It's very hard. It's very demanding. It works on flexibility. It works on fitness. You had your camps, and now you're in Australia where you have an outdoor lifestyle and everyone is fit. Everyone is training. I say everyone, a general statement, but they have the facilities, they have the lifestyle, and they have the sport. What was that like for you venturing there, and how did that change your perception on sport?
Um, I think that was probably my kind of first experience of realizing how big the world was. But in terms of, I suppose I didn't really maybe understand the magnitude that that would have had in the fitness industry. It was just so amazing for me to have all of these gyms that I could apply to work in. But I think and now that you've asked that question, I'm like, gosh, I don't think I've ever really thought about the answer to that. I suppose I would have definitely noticed the way everyone looked was very different. Because I felt growing up, muscles was something that was very like, oh, a girl with like a muscular physique. Whereas over there, it was like, oh my gosh, everyone's kind of athletic looking and, no one really wore makeup or anything. So I felt for me, it was more a it was more a personal transition I was going into when I moved to Australia because it gave me the space to live in a city, wear my hair curly, be whoever I wanted to be. So I know that's not really answering your question, but yeah, I suppose to sum up, it was just the vastness of everything.
Yeah, and I suppose, yeah, to bring it, we call a small town mentality, where when you leave the small town, and obviously you're a small person in a big city, and getting involved in the gym scene, I suppose, did that give you more foundation in terms of seeing sport in Australia, seeing athletic women, athletic men training hard? How did that, particularly going in the coaching kind of element, how did that change your perspective?
Once again, I think at the time I was really focused on making money and building my life in Australia. That, because everyone says to me, like, what, did you go and see, oh gosh, I even forget what it's called. It's the Australian football, Aussie rules, that's it, over
Aussie
there.
rule.
Like, oh, did you go to all the matches? I'm like, no, lads, like, I worked solid for the time I was there. So, in a way, I'm like, I feel my brain isn't processing what I would have been thinking about at the time, but seeing the team sports and everything, it's not really until later on when you've left that you're like, oh, I had all of this available to me, but I wasn't using it. I wasn't using it. And I was in my early 20s as well, so I feel there's a element of is it naivety is the word? Ignorance as well that I took for granted.
Suppose one of those when you go over, you hear about people in Australia is to make your money, 6 months to mines, try and do the gym work and stuff like that. You're not thinking, you're just, it's day to day at that stage because it doesn't feel like it's ever going to end.
That's the thing, and because when I went over, I did say, "Oh, I'm only going to do the 6 months. I'll
Hmm.
see what happens." 6 months turned
Famous
into,
last words.
yeah,
Famous.
and then by the time I did my second working holiday visa, it was like, "No, I want to live here forever." And so then that became my focus: is how can I make this dream into a reality? And obviously, I'm not there anymore. So yeah.
Did you go farming? What dirty deed did you do to stay in Australia longer?
Lads, I was so lucky. So I managed to get a little like kind of cushy assistant hotel management job doing my farm work. So driving around. Now I did have 2 weeks of almond pruning, but that was it. So I was really, really lucky that I thought, oh, everyone's out grafting and just driving my
Chasing
little ute
cows and
out.
doing everything and picking strawberries and you name it, they were doing it. And
Yeah.
moving on from Australia, then you moved over towards Canada. You were a little bit older. You're moving on that journey into sport. What brought you then into sport in Canada? What was the difference there? And look, I know we're probably just going on a worldwide tour, but it's very rare we have someone who has been in so many environments in the coaching environment.
I think once again it was that career progression. It was, oh, the dreams changed. I've I felt like with the personal training, you do kind of can't help but take on a lot of, well, I'm an empath, so I think I would also feel at the end of the day, I was like, wow, I'm just taking everything on here. So then the dream became gym management. Um, and once again, when I first moved over to Vancouver, I would have started off with personal training, but I got an amazing opportunity to manage a gym over there. So then it became, how can I shape the new ones coming into the fitness industry? Because I do think certainly from when I first started, there's been this massive shift within the industry. It's completely changed,
Hmm.
but it was like, okay, how can I make it more about the positives? I know there's a lot of pros and cons to the change, and as well noticing a lot more females coming into the industry as well. So that became more of the focus rather than, I suppose, sport as a whole. But then the downside to that was, I feel, was I kind of became disconnected from my own training doing that because it became all about everybody else. So I learned the hard way that management isn't for me.
Yeah, you're just straight off the gym floor when that happens. It seems like the best of both worlds. You have to control everything, but then when you're off the gym floor, it's like, wait, my job has nothing to do with why I got into it in the first place.
And I would say to people, it's complaints management. That is literally what it is as a manager. And no one really explained that to me. I think I just saw my own gym managers like, encouraging me and everything. And I'm like, wow, you actually take home like work home with you every single day. No one sold me that. It was more I was thinking about that obviously and just I want to help people and everything. And there's other ways that you can do that.
Yeah, it's that big box gym when you're in that kind of stuff. It's the ladder goes up to make the money, you lose the passion and the reason you got in, and it's such a hard struggle. What kind of gym were you in Vancouver at the time? Was it just your regular gym, or was there a niche to it? Was it like a CrossFit or an F45 that stage, or
Good Life. So it was a franchise gym. Uh,
okay?
and it was in a particular I'll call it bougie part of the town. So that was maybe my first experience with dealing with that kind of higher end type mentality where there comes a lot of privilege and entitlement. And as a Scot, I'm certainly not built for that. So that was really challenging to be like, wow, I have to swallow my words. And that's not like everyone, but it was a bit like, what? And just the way that it was so normalized to other people on the team, where they're like, yeah, but they're paying for, a premium service. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't just throw a check at someone. And that is literally sometimes what I experienced. And I thought, I'm a human being.
Mm.
Or because I was young at the time, I would also have a lot of, can I speak to your manager? And I'm like, I am the manager. And it's like,
Oh,
and I'm
yes.
for crying out loud.
To finish off Eric's tour before we go back to Ireland, you're talking about high, literally high point, as in Kilimanjaro. Is that before you came back to Ireland? Talk us through that experience.
Yeah, so gosh, was I 18, 19 at the time? So that was again, I think, I know I'm trying to be like, what possessed me to want to do it? I think I'm quite an impulsive person. So I see something and I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I was very lucky at the time. I was working full time, so I had the financial means to do it. But that definitely probably sparked my the world is a big place, go and explore it. Like my parents did a lot of traveling, so I always had that bird-like mentality of, oh, okay, no, I need to go off and do something else. But that I would love to do Kilimanjaro again because I think a lot of my experiences, I was too young at the time to really take it in. I was all about, okay, let's get to the next camp. And I think I forgot to take everything. And I was the youngest in the group. So everyone was a lot older than me. So even the types of conversations you're having, like I was the same age as most of their children.
Hmm.
So that's why I'm like, oh, now that I'm in my 30s now, I would love to go back and not think about, I want to be the first one in this group to reach the top. I just want to take in my surroundings. So yeah, that was definitely a trip with a tiny bit of ego, I won't lie there, but
Fair.
what an experience. And I would highly recommend everyone to do it.
I saw one of your posts you talked about, you said that was on par with finishing your first marathon. Is that a case of just everything's when you, I suppose like their biggest high is always like that next kind of thing. Like just for someone who's never climbed anywhere near that high, I have no idea what it'd be like in Kilimanjaro. Like how does that compare to your first marathon in Cork? Was it 2022? And how did that journey go from hiking that high to going, I want to start running and I want to start doing marathons?
I mean, you guys know yourself, you finish a race and it becomes like I always call it the what's next mentality. We can't, or I certainly can't help myself at times. So I suppose that's what I mean with it. It's on par is you finish something like Kilimanjaro, you get home and my mum put up all these balloons and banners and everything, and you're just like, well, what's next? Like I've done something like that. How can I just go back to my 9 to 5 and working in the
Mm.
gym and everything? But then it spurs on something because I remember looking up like Everest Base Camp and my mum's just like, chill out, you know, it becomes this like, what else can I do? And I suppose it's the same with certainly when I finished my first marathon, I got to the end and I was like, oh, I really enjoyed that. What's next? And then obviously my next couple of marathons were next. And then I was still curious about ultra distances. And then you open up that rabbit hole and then you're like, oh crap, where does this end?
I know myself and Sean, we probably had the same ego you had with Kilimanjaro. Me and Sean thought we'd win the marathon the first time we did it. So, but what I suppose we always say everyone who does a marathon is doing it for a reason. For me and Sean, it was because we were stupid. That was
Yeah.
our sole reason. But since then, like that high we talk about, it's for so much more. We understand with an older head on it that what it means to finish one. But what took you, because it's two very different paths. One gym based, class based to marathon. They usually only in recent years started to mix. What brought you into running?
I finished reading David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. It was going into 2022, and I think I can totally admit I would have had a bit of a victim mindset for a couple of years of poor me, I get back pain because of my car accident, I get this and I get that, and I had to say goodbye to my life in Australia because of it. And then I had that, David Goggins, he's a bit mad. You
Yeah.
talks about, doing endurance running, and I thought, okay, only psychopaths do ultra marathons. I'll just do a marathon and see if I can do it. And like that, I suppose, like many people, you do one, and then the endorphins, the high, the curiosity of can I get faster? Because I always swore I would just complete a marathon. That's all I wanted to do. It was never meant to, I never visualized myself ever doing a 100-mile flipping 24-hour race.
And before we get into that, that first finish line feeling from obviously reading David Goggins, a marathon is a big journey. And you're
Mm.
kind of glossing over on your first one because you've changed the mentality, you've shifted mentality, and 42 kilometers plus the training. How was that first one? How was that first finish line, and what did it mean to you?
It was so emotional, lads. Like, I still remember the first time I ran 18 miles in training, and I sent one of my friends back home a voice note of just me sobbing, being like, I don't know if I'm going to finish this marathon, but if I only get to 18 miles, like, what an achievement. So getting to the end, it, yeah, I suppose I can't really find the words because when you think you can't do something, that feeling of I've done it is so overwhelming. But I think I didn't have a lot of runners around me in my life at that point. So I think there was also an isolation that came with that experience because I couldn't really vocalize to anyone that it was like, oh my gosh, a marathon. Because I'm sure you know yourself, everyone's just like, you're crazy. And I started getting really like, one more person calls me crazy. I'm not crazy, but only runners, I feel, understand that we're not crazy. It's just a different kind of crazy. Maybe we are, but it's a justified craziness.
It'd almost make you want to start the podcast, wouldn't it, Colleen? And going from that, we all have it. And there's a reason why the marathons ask you, are you going to sign up for next year within the 2 days afterwards? Is because that high, that sense of accomplishment and the ability to run with thousands of others who all have the same goal as you. Yeah, times will be different, but the goal is still the same, is to complete a marathon. From that bug, and obviously understanding, we always say week in, week out, like we over 7 kilometers for me and Sean, then we actually start to enjoy running. Less than seven, oh, it's torture. And then we
Mm.
reach this euphoric stage up until around 27 kilometers, and then the hell comes back in again. But for that period of a long run, and obviously you endured that, you trained through that, moving on through that, how important was long running and endurance running and endurance training in your life going forward from that, following the book, following a marathon, and how did it become part of your life and your everyday routine, and how important was it?
Uh, I mean, I echo everything that you said, and honestly, it was so refreshing when you said about, past the 7K, it becomes like it's torture up until that point. Because I always say my short run is a 10K, and everyone's like, geez, that's my long run. And I'm like, no, my brain starts to switch off, and then I get the benefits by that point. So it was just really nice to hear you speak about that. But for me, it's became a meditative process. I mean, now don't get me wrong, there are certain points of the year where it's not. I'm going out because I'm feeling sluggish, like especially around Christmas time. It's definitely a love-hate relationship because maybe I'm not training for anything and it's like, no, I need to get out because I don't feel connected to my body. But it's definitely become my meditation, and I do meditate on top of that as well. But just going out, and you're at one where your demons, like what you're saying, for 5K, 6K, 7K, then the 10K mark hits and it's like, oh, you're free to just think. And obviously some days it's not quite like that. I said to someone the other week, oh, I did an accidental 18-mile run, and they're like, how do you run an accidental 18-mile run? I'm like, oh, well, I was stressed about this and I was a bit worried about this. And because then when you're running and you just zone out, and I'm sure it's happened to you guys before, that you're like, oh crap, oh, I need to turn back now, because everything's just faded and you're just really connected to the present moment. I know everyone talks about the present moment, but that's the best way I can explain it. So I do find if I haven't ran in a couple of days, I can be a bit cranky. But I think part of that is to do with just how I associate it with a form of meditation. So yeah, I say
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. If it's been a couple of days for me, or even a little while, even without going to the gym, not necessarily even the running as such, but some sort of movement. Like
movement.
movement is
Yeah.
definitely my medicine. And like I find that for the first 5K, all your problems are there. The reason why you shouldn't have ran, I haven't got enough time to do this. I'm supposed to do this in the week. That's the first 7K. But after that, you've solved all your problems, and all of a sudden you've got new ideas. Like we might have a new idea for the podcast, or we might, all of a sudden the fresh stuff starts coming in and positivity starts coming in. And then after the run in the car, you're like, isn't this great now? My run is done. I have the whole day. And if I just do this, this, and this, I'll have everything. So that's what I find from it. And it is a freedom. The only element, well, the best part is as well, the phone. Yes, some people run with their phone as well, but it very rarely comes out. It's usually music if I'm on my own on a long run, and it helps, especially because it is isolated when you're training for things. You've alluded to it as well. When you're on a marathon training, but now we're so lucky in modern day Ireland, there's running clubs popping up absolutely everywhere. And obviously we've podcasts and we've this and we've that and we've everything. Strava, you're never alone when you've got Strava. So we are very lucky in that sense. Moving on then from your meditation, so you keep a big part of your life. Was it this Kilimanjaro base camp Everest feeling after the marathon, or were you just like, no, I really enjoyed that, let's do that again a couple of times? Or what was that feeling after the marathon? What was next?
I definitely think I got the bug for the faster times. Like I think the first time I did a sub 3:30, it was like, oh, that was my goal. And then naturally you're chasing the next goal. But I think it was always the how can I become better at this? But then I suppose within that, it became how can I go further? So it was trying to get the two of like, oh, I want to be a faster runner and I want to get this time in the half marathon and this in the marathon, but I also want to run, ultras now. So yeah, it was always that, yeah, once you kind of tick that one thing off the list, you're like, oh, okay, now the next thing.
And
Yeah, it's just like Sean, when he realizes he can't go faster, he has to go further.
that's exactly what happened. I got to a point like, but it's mad because similar to you, and correct me if I'm wrong. I never thought about 100 miles and stuff like that. And the big thing for me, I've talked years on this podcast and no one listened, was the David Goggins book. Like you talk about breaking sub 3:30. I saw you did that in Cork, and a month before that you did 15 minutes less than Belfast. You somehow made it 15 minutes, it's phenomenal. But then like you hit your goal sub 3:30. You did Longford ultra marathon, and you came third in that, your first 40-mile run, your first ultra marathon, came third. You're talking about David Goggins in your post, and you can see, looking at it, it looks like you're strongly hinting that the next goal has to be the 100-mile goal. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
And that takes you then to how long after that? Then you sign up for the Belfast 24-hour ultra. Is that just a short loop and you keep on going, or describe that for people?
Yeah, so that was you're running around Victoria Park, which is just over a mile loop, and you're running around that for 24 hours. So I initially entered the 100 miles. So then I would stop after that. And like that, I just had that crazy flash of, well, let's just do 24 hours, see what
Oh,
happens.
How was the training for that? And going back to the Goggins book, the mile 81, the talking about how he was broke up to that point and he's on his crackers and chocolate milk or whatever he was drinking and doing nutrition all wrong. You're looking at that, you see the wrong way of doing it, though he did it, and you're doing the faster stuff. How did you train for the longer stuff? What was your mentality going, right? I'm going to be running for 24 hours now.
I mean, a lot of now, I'm gonna be honest with you, lads. There was a lot of winging it for me. So obviously, I did do a lot of research. I didn't have a coach or anything like
Hmm.
that. So it was all about time on feet, doing the back-to-back runs. So I would do like maybe a 20-mile run on a Saturday and then another 20-mile run on the Sunday. And sometimes I'd be splitting the runs morning and night as well. There wasn't a lot of strength training involved, which is where I went wrong because I was bollocks. Like, and also at the time, I wasn't really enjoying the weights. Everyone kept saying to me, don't forget your strength training. And I'm like, oh, yeah, whatever.
When
it's
you have
so
to do a
hard.
20-mile run on a Saturday and a
It's so
Sunday,
hard.
and I always preach strength training, but when it goes to that of the ultras and stuff and the backyards and all the rest of it, my strength training just goes straight
Yeah,
down the toilet.
there's
100%.
only so many hours in the day, and you're a bit
Mm.
like, nah, I'm all good. You know,
It's the goal that matters.
Yeah, that's the thing, and you kind of forget about, oh crap, if I don't do this, how's my body gonna recover from this? Nutrition was another huge downfall for me because I was so used to the kind of marathon nutrition of the gels.
Mm.
So I learned the very hard way doing the 24-hour that you don't want to start off with gels. You want to good. Someone's like, "Where's your sandwiches?" And I'm like, "Oh, what do you mean? I've got like loads of Rice Krispie bars and Ultra, like the high five gels." That was it. So thankfully, my partner was there, and he managed to run to a shop to get loads of food or whatever. So there was a lot that I learned from. So in terms of the training, I feel like this year I've been a lot more okay, train your digestive system, like go out with the bagels and go out with the sandwiches because that, yeah, I mean, obviously, I'd read plenty of people that have had accidents in their pants, like doing the, no, it can't be me. Like, I don't want to, like, I think that's my goal. If I can get through all these long races without that happening, that would be fab. But if it happens, it's fine.
How was the actual race itself? At what point did you know I'm gonna break this 100 mile? Because when I did my 24-hour thing, the first 6 hours, I remember after that, like I'm ahead of myself, and then the body started breaking down. I had a 15-20 minute talk to myself and all the rest, and then halfway, I was like, during the day, I was like, mate, I'm on track here. If I get halfway through the night, I might get a 4 an hour or two sleep. And when I got half through the night, I was like, oh, I'm slowing down. I need to stay awake throughout the whole thing. And then, like, I barely got 101 mile. You crushed it. Talk us through the day.
A bit like you're saying, I think we always celebrate a little bit too soon. 50 miles for me was like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm there and I'm feeling good. My pace was pretty consistent. So I think the cockiness came in where I was like, I'm gonna be fine. And then I started setting all these mad goals in my head that I was like, okay, I'm clearly gonna get past like 100 miles and maybe I can get to 120 and I'm doing all the maths. And I think it got to 51 and it was downhill pretty fast from there. I started walking and then I remember a couple of people had said to me, like, when are you going to sleep? Now, my plan wasn't to sleep for the record. And I'm saying, I was like, why are people asking me if I'm gonna like have a nap or sleep? Like, we're going for 24 hours. Like, that's the whole thing. And then it started getting a bit quiet round like doing the loops. And that's when I found out people were resting. So I thought, okay, I'll just use this time to change into my night gear And because it was starting to get a bit cold and it was raining and then it was warm. It was like the mixture of all the elements at the time. And then I think just stopping and kind of having that moment of being like, what am I doing? Like why like we're I've got the whole night ahead of me.
Mm.
People are sleeping and I can't sleep because I know I'm not going to get up. So then I kept going, but it was like the really like snail pace jog. And I think when you're going at that pace, you have the time for your body to be like, I am in agony. And there was like, I'm so lucky. 'Cause, like my boyfriend wasn't into running at the time. So I think he was like, oh my gosh, she's like insane because I was crying during some laps. Other I was like, I'm just gonna sing Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, constant highs and lows. So when I said to him, I think when the sun was coming up, I was like, I just want to get to 100 miles. And then if I've still got time left, because it was finishing at 12, I'll just walk.
Mm.
And and everyone lines up when you're coming to your 100-mile lap. And once again, the ego takes over, and I'm like, I've got to 100 miles. Okay. And I can't remember what time it was. And I thought, oh, I've still got a couple of hours until this race finishes. I can definitely go past 100 miles,
Unreal.
you know?
I gotta hate it. I basically was like, right, just gotta get an extra. It took me 20 minutes to barely do another mile, and then that was it for me. 12 o'clock kicked. For you to do an extra 11K after hitting that goal and getting 171K in, and on top of that, you came second in this event. Your first 24-hour event, you come second. Like you hit the high of the 100 mile, your goal, and all these other bonuses. That had to be up there, the Kilimanjaro feeling and the first marathon feeling. Or were
Yeah.
you just tired?
Um, at the time, I think I was just really
Yeah.
I was just done. Like my blister, like my feet swole up. I had really bad blisters. I knew I'd chafed because I'm sure you guys are the same. You step into the shower after a race and you're just like, what?
Everything stinks.
Yeah,
Mm.
everything. And it's just
Yeah.
that fear of being like, I have to take these clothes off and I know this shower is going to be absolutely awful. And I swore at the time, like, oh, I'm never going to do this to myself again. I'm done. So I don't think I actually had time to, I suppose, process everything. And that's what I think is the downside of the what's next mentality. Is you
Mm.
come home and you've done something so amazing, you're recovering for a few days, and then you're online Googling, being like, well, I now want to get to 200 kilometers. Where can I do that? You know,
Yeah, we only talked about it a couple weeks on the podcast. It's just that downer you feel afterwards, and you start chasing that high. For me, my body breaks down so much. It's like I haven't a hope of chasing that high for a good couple of months afterwards. It's almost like a defense mechanism just goes, no, you're not walking for a few days, pal. So no point in you. You can Google all you want, but you won't be able to
you're
sign
not
up to
moving
anything.
anywhere.
And it's just a good feeling that's making you Google because in the most parts,
Mm.
even after Barcelona marathon we did last year, like I was mentally never mind the physical. The physical comes and goes, but motivation wise, I had none. And now I'm hard to get going on the best of days. But like I had zero. I had absolutely zero. Do you find that with your training, particularly after the 100 mile? Was that the first time? I don't know how your recovery went, but did you come out of that and go, I should run, but there's not a bone in me that wants to run.
Um, I will be honest with you. I recovered relatively well, which was the problem because then my brain was like, oh, you should be in bits for weeks. And
Mm.
I'm speaking to other people and they're like, gosh, some are saying that they could walk after a few days and others are like, I couldn't walk for like a solid week. I was working from home or whatever. But for me, I was like, oh, maybe if I was to really put my all into the nutrition side of things and everything, maybe this is something that I could actually get better at and maybe I won't be suffering as much at the time. So that was the downside to me is I really kind of thought I'd be I say out the game, but as in I'd be floored for a lot
Mm.
longer than what I was. But when you're kind of up and moving, you can't help but be like, well, I'm okay, guess I'm just gonna go for a run, even though I went for a really long one the other day. And my knees were a bit bad, I won't lie there, but I almost wish my body did slow me down a little bit more, because the downside is once again you're jumping straight back out to be like, okay, well, when's my next marathon, or when's my next this, rather
Mm.
than being like, okay, body, you've done something great, well done, relax. And that's why I think that there's a plus side sometimes to being sore, because you have to stay still. You have to listen to your body. Whereas I was like, nah, I'm just such a pro. Like, I can just go out and, I'm fine.
Do you find after that then, I know like right now I haven't ran in a couple of weeks, but I had all these events and stuff on, and I'm getting constantly in work now. It's like, what's your next big event? So like when you do stuff like this, and you did, we're skimming over very quick. You did the Belfast and Derry Ultra as well, which we'll talk about more in a second. 120k, you did phenomenal in that, and you're doing. You get a goal of 3 marathons, 3 half marathons, a certain amount of time. Do you get that sometimes though? If you take it down, or just a break of some stage, the people around you going, "Oh, something has to be next, Colleen. What's the next big mad thing?" And then a half marathon, sure, that's only a walk in the park to you, Colleen. Like, what's the real big thing?
I have found that. I think I definitely experienced that with I did Fastlane last week, and I'd said to like a couple of my friends, "Oh, I'm doing a half," like, when it's here, and they're like, "Ah, sure, you just do half marathons." Like, I'm just like, okay, but
A half marathon's easy for you, Colleen. I'm not running with you.
But yeah, a marathon like a half marathon, I did fast a couple of years ago. That is like, right, if I feel good, this is PB territory. I'm gonna try and kill myself in this half marathon route. And it was a hell of a hot day when you did it.
but that's the thing, is I went in with that mentality of, oh, flat course, I'm gonna be grand. And I think that's why I wanted some of my friends to be there. So I'm like, it's gonna be great, I'm gonna get to the end, I'm gonna PB. Now I look back, I'm like, thank goodness they weren't there, because I was in such a Debbie Downer after, and I do think I gave myself a bit of sunstroke. But I have found at the start of this year, there was I wasn't really posting a lot about, and I don't really post an awful lot about my training or the mileage I do or whatever, but you get the odd message that's like, oh, so I see this marathon's coming up, are you doing it? And I'm like, huh? And I would always enter my marathons round about New Year time, because I like to schedule them round, my acting commitments, because I don't really want to have to back out of any races or
Mm.
anything. Um, so I didn't have anything. But then I was like, I project a feeling that everyone thinks I'm being like weak or lazy, and I know no one's thinking that. So then it comes back to that, like, oh wow, I actually don't have anything next. And like I signed on to do Belfast to Derry again this year. And I was chatting to another girl, I was like, oh sure, you did that last year. And I'm like, okay, so now do I have to run 200 miles for it to
Mm.
be like oh, but sure, you've already done that. And I'm like, I know, but still, it's 75 miles. What?
It's not just something just do that for the weekend. Like people think it's just like a game level. You tick it off. Okay, what's the next level? And there's only so far the body and stuff can take it. And speaking of that, I do want to talk about the Belfast and Derry, but you're talking about there sometimes being sore, and the skeptical kind of person may look at your times and go, maybe Colleen is this fast because she wears the Alpha Flies. You wore the Alpha Flies for the Dublin Marathon last year, I think, and you said, quote unquote, you won't be running them again. But these are the Alpha Flies. What's going on?
Do you guys run in the
Can't
carbon?
afford them. The Alphas. No, I got the paper flies. It's one of those where I just don't feel like I'm good enough to run an Alpha Flies just yet. But I did get paper flies for I PB Barcelona in the vapor flies. Eric didn't like them. He said that the
Oh, hated
stability or
them.
something. You hated them, but I've never wore Alpha. And I don't know the difference.
They're, pardon my French, like they're crap, and that's not even that bad a word. I just find they're not great. Like they're not great for my feet. I blistered. I got caught up in the Instagram hype,
Mm.
which is another thing. I feel like and I don't know if you guys are the same. It's like you see things on Instagram all the time, and you're flooded with everything that I'm like, okay, I have to get this, and I should get this, and I should get this, and I'm like, hold on, when I first started out, I didn't know about half these brands or that I should be racing in these specific shoes. But I mean, and marathons, as we know, are hard as like they're hard anyway. But I've never experienced foot pain like that before.
Mm.
So it was like the race itself was grand, but my word, and it's just so disappointing because you pay like 300 plus quid for a shoe, one dent PB in them, but two, your feet are completely destroyed. Because I was going to wear them on Sunday there, and then I thought, are you mad? Like it means you've not learned anything. I might do it for like a 10K or something because I'm like, okay, I can maybe deal with an hour of like that pressure, but I don't understand the hype, to be honest.
Yeah, I found that in Barcelona. Like my right ankle, I've never had pain. Do you know the way people Achilles pain has been coming? I'm not saying it's associated, but I could just feel I was running unbalanced, and my right ankle really felt it. And after about 17 or 18 kilometers, I was feeling it. I was like, this is not good. I've
Yeah.
never felt this on any run ever. And that was when I, like you, I'm like, do you know what? For a 10K, I understand
Mm.
the little bit of it. I understand it for fantastic athletes. When you're in the finer margins of numbers, then it gives you the extra percentage. It takes out some of the fatigue because the spring out of shoe. I understand the science, but I'm not winning the marathon. So for the difference in, they say it gives 10%. I don't know the percentages it gives. Your training will give you X amount of percent. Your nutrition will give you this. But enjoyment has to be one of them as well. If you're walking away with blistered feet and then pain, like that was the one big thing that really concerned me afterwards. And I wasn't right for a long time afterwards. And yeah, it was one that made me think about it. And it is frustrating because you do buy into the hype. You look at Kipchoge, you look at all these and like, yeah, put on these multicolored shoes. I'm going to run all sorts of paces. But at the end, it's not worth the recovery afterwards.
No, and I think we always forget as well, though, that their shoes are getting specifically fitted for them and stuff as
Mm.
well. So it's like we're buying into this hype, but it's like, oh, they have a whole team of people making sure that this is snug as a bug for them. And we're just walking into the nearest shop to be like, ah, sure, there's a bit of wiggle room here. Yep, we're grand.
Yeah, and look,
Uh,
we're generalizing. There's some people they suit. There's some runners out there that think, oh, these are the best things in sliced pan. But well, definitely me, Colleen. I'm like,
if I paid 300 quid, Eric, I'd be saying that what they wearing for them.
Because
I'd be, oh yeah, it was definitely worth it. Like,
yeah.
we'll never be sponsored by them now, so it's grand.
Well, we weren't going to get sponsored by them anyway. But Hoka, if you're listening, we love your shoes. But yeah, no, it's one of those. It's running is the cheapest form of exercise until you sign up to a marathon. So it's one of those that like everything that goes with it and all the bits and equipment. Obviously, we've mentioned part-time runner and full-time actress. Does anyone on your runs recognize you from any of your roles? Is that weird when they're like, "Hey, Anna"? No, it's Colleen. Oh no.
I do get Carrickstown shouted at me when I'd be racing, like, go on, Carrickstown. And then there is the odd time where I'd be running, like, do you know when you're running the races and you kind of find a buddy to just stick with, and they'll just be chatting to me as Anna. And then in terms of a regular basis, there has been the odd time where folk be like, I know you're out to run, but can I just get like a wee photo? And I'm like, I look awful right now, but yeah, okay.
while you're racing.
Not while I'm racing, but like if I'm out training, you
Oh
get
yeah.
one person that's like, can I get a photo? So that was considering the acting, career was relatively new to me. It was very bizarre because you're like, oh, do they want me to respond as Anna or do they want me to respond as me? Like, what is like?
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
can be a bit bizarre at times because it takes a while, or sometimes someone will say something in reference to like a past storyline, and I'm like, oh, they're talking about that. They're not actually talking about
My life.
Yeah, it does take me a minute. Like somebody actually said to me the other day, it was like, oh, welcome back to Dublin. How is Limerick? And I was like, huh? But my character is Limerick. So then I was like, oh, they think I went to Limerick. Is it? No, like, no, Anna's divorced
No,
and I'm
That's
that's
like
just
the
work.
here.
it's like the Friends storyline where you one thinks that Joey's actually Drake Ramore.
Yeah.
You're a doctor. You saved this first. That's insane that happens.
Yeah, and it does take a while. Like my character cheated on her boyfriend, and I was going to see a play and a group of ladies was just like, it's terrible what you did cheating on your man. And I know they're like joking, but it's like when other people can like overhear that conversation.
Over here, they're like, who,
Can you
Joanne?
just clarify we're talking about the TV and not in real life?
You probably don't be like, yeah, I'm on TV. I'm a big deal as well. So that's a hard one to explain.
Cheater. Brilliant. It's one thing as well, and that's why I suppose people say never meet your heroes. They've bumped into you, Colleen, and they're like, that's not Anna.
Oh, so funny.
So I'm gonna ask. I have to ask. We've touched on it so much over the course of the hour. What's next? I'm sorry now if this sends you down a spiral, but what's next? Rumor has it we're selling tickets to the Barcelona Marathon next March.
What is next? I've got Waterford Marathon in 5 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. And then the week after, I'm going to do Belfast to Derry again. So that's my mental challenge is, can my body recover from a marathon going straight into the 5 miles? And then similar to what I've done in other years, which is maybe a little bit irresponsible, but I'm going to see if I can do it, is I just want to do a race a month until November.
And would distance matter, or is it a race as in it has to be a marathon?
I want to try and get a PB in this year. Certainly for the marathon distance, I will settle for, not for the half marathon. But the longest distance I'll do will be now, if a 24-hour race pops up in Ireland, I'll sign up to a 24-hour race. But the longest distance I've booked so far is 75 miles. But my little brain is going, oh. So yeah.
Maybe we can go back and beat 174 kilometers. 171.
171 I have in front of me. That's right.
171. 172 sounds nice.
Colin, I have to ask just on the back of that, your PB was in Limerick. This weekend coming when this podcast come out, the Cork Marathon beyond. You've done the Belfast Marathon. You've done Dublin. Not the
I know where you're going.
Where you're going. Other people hating you because you're a cheater, Anna. What's the favourite? What stands out? Cork?
Yep. I know.
Is that because it's the nearest one coming up? The Cork people got to you. Why?
Now, I must admit, the atmosphere in Dublin is incredible. You feel like an Olympic athlete just because of the crowds. But Cork, now maybe it's just because it was my first. I'm raging I couldn't get a ticket for this year. It is my favourite. And I don't know. I think it's the scenery. There's something about the scenery because you come up to this open part, and then you've got the greenery and the trees, and then you're going up and down the hills, and then you get to see the hills. There's just something about it, and the places where it is quiet. That's your time for your own reflection, because I do feel like Dublin can be quite chaotic during the whole way, which is nice. You feed off everyone's energy, but I actually like having that moment where it's like, okay, I'm just surrounded by everyone's footsteps. That's it. And then you have the places where all the crowds can be, and you're like, okay, I needed that wave of energy. It's like there's crowds in the best of places. That's why
Cork is a great one. And the only thing that's the gotcha with Cork is it can be warm.
Yeah.
That is the only gotcha, but it's hey, look, it's a fantastic place. And like you said, there's elements of that marathon where it's just you and your thoughts. Like running through the tunnel is actually really cool.
And everyone's shouting and stuff.
Everyone's shouting and screaming, and yeah, it's brilliant. It's one of those, and it is a nice one, and everything's so central, and pretty much when you finish the race, you're not walking from what it is a nice marathon. The only bit that annoys me about Cork is when the half marathon people join the race and they think they're superstars.
And it's, do you know, I sometimes feel bad saying that because a few of my friends would have done the half marathon in Cork, but you're right, it really irritates me because I'm like, look at these people all flipping fresh.
Taking over the road and I
Yeah,
have to run on the footpath.
you can't help it. But I felt like that doing Longford as well because the ultra course joins in with the marathon and the half marathon course as well. So then when all the marathon people are coming along and like I was struggling, they're like, "You've got this," and I'm like, "Excuse me, I started at 7 a.m. Like, and I felt my ego being like, yeah, well, I'm running the ultra, so like, I swear I'm not just an hour in and struggling,
Make those bibs really different. Bright
Yeah.
yellow ultra
Yeah.
bib. I'm doing something completely different.
We'll send you out a t-shirt now, Colleen. When on the back it'll say, "I'm running further than you."
Oh, that'd be gas.
Oh, that's brilliant. Colin, very best luck with all these races you have coming up throughout the rest of the year. If you're going to go one a month, and hopefully that PB and a sub, I think 3:23 in Limerick was your PB of Southern Marathon. So that's a big ask to get more than that, especially with doing marathons and then 120 Ks or 75 miles the following week. That's phenomenal. But it's been absolutely great listening to your running journey today in the podcast.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
And that is it for this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast with myself, Colleen, and Eric. Take care.